The live environment, I think, has a lot of work that it needs to do, because the microaggressions that you kind of get,
right.
You walk onto a main stage and even though you've got the correct pass and a radio, it's, oh, sorry, we don't allow girlfriends or friends on stage.
Do you think artists actually work hard enough at their live show?
You don't need 100,000 people. You just need like the right people. You could go and record a song as absolutely nobody and blow up. And I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Like, you know, the gatekeeping part of the industry is very slowly kind of falling apart.
Jo, welcome to
Hi.
the Blind Talent podcast. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, look, we're going to get straight into it because you've had an amazing career. You've worked with some incredible artists. So Deadmau5, Tiësto, Marshmello, Swedish House Mafia. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on and on and on. But what I really want to know is, where did it all really start for you?
I always wanted to work in music. I think ever since I was a teenager and I bought music magazines because that was the thing that you did when you were a teenager then.
Yeah.
I was so interested with how it all worked. I never wanted to be an artist, but I was fascinated by how the whole thing worked, how it grew, how artists got famous, what it was like kind of being behind the scenes. I went to gigs a lot. So I just tailored my whole entire sort of education experience around it. I went to uni and did journalism with the aim of kind of becoming a journalist.
Right.
And then I think as a lot of people that want to do journalism end up being on the other side in PR, I didn't get into sort of the industry properly until I was about 23, 24. I'd bounced around doing internships, doing events and various different things. And then, I started working at Listen Up, which is quite a big electronic music PR company, which was kind of a bit of a shock for me, really, because I'd come from band world and that was my one sort of love. And at the time, I think they were the only people that gave me a job. But I immediately kind of got stuck into it. I worked with a lot of those big artists very, very early on. I think a lot of people that worked there were kind of more house and techno. So I did the more pop stuff because it was the stuff, there were artists that I knew the name of. Yeah, so just got thrown in the deep end, which seems to be a bit of a recurring theme with my career. Right. But I just absolutely loved it. And I stayed there for 8 years working with all of those artists, like you mentioned.
It's amazing. And Sarah Wilson, who was on I don't know if you know Sarah Wilson from TuneCore, she was on one of the earlier episodes and very similar. So she started out through journalism, then ended up working with Adele. It's kind of crazy how these things work. So when you started in PR, what was that first moment when you broke into PR and thought, wow, this is fucking cool?
Given it was kind of the early sort of 2010s and EDM was exploding, I went to the US quite a lot. And I remember going to my first Ultra music festival with one of the guys from Swedish House Mafia. And it just being the most enormous thing I've ever seen in my life. American festivals are not the same as UK festivals. The main stage was the biggest thing I've ever seen. And I was like, this is an industry. Even just this pocket of electronic music, which is something that I wasn't maybe particularly interested in to start off with, that it was just magic and lights and lasers. And I just completely fell in love with it. And also could see where the scene was going, which was, I think I kind of came in when it was on its upward trajectory already. I think it had kind of simmered with people like David Guetta, who've obviously been around for a really long time. Yeah. But breaking through into that more pop world, it just changed everything. And I was like, I just want to stay in dance music forever. This is incredible.
It's a strange genre, isn't it? I think when you look at it over the years, I remember the early 90s acid house scene, and I remember the Prodigy breaking through, and as the seasons kind of went on, really, and the decades went on, you had this early noughties phase of it being quite faceless, really faceless dance. Clubland had a lot of these tracks like Fly on the Wings of Love and Set You Free, and these kind of slightly, I guess, poppier end of dance music, really, but very, very, very faceless, and an awful lot of cover songs. But around that 2010s, it started to get a bit more serious, didn't it? With these artists like your Swedish House Mafia, who then partnered with Tiny Temper, and you had all these kind of amazing moments. It sounds incredible. Ultra, obviously, being a major dance label and publisher, and I remember actually going to ADE and they were giving out ultra brollies. I don't know if you were there at that point, walking around with these ultra brollies. I remember thinking, yeah, this works. This totally works. It's a cool brand, and I don't mind having it as my brolly.
It was a very, very big brand for a very long time.
And so what was different in America in those festivals? Because look, we know Americans do it bigger. Everything's bigger. But what was fundamentally different to that and, I don't know, maybe one of the UK dance festival? What do you think was like, that's really different?
Everything in America is bigger, cheesier, more covered in glitter, whereas we're a little bit more headsy and maybe reserved about things. And the UK has a very, very rich electronic music history. And I think that, like we're always a lot sort of more maybe respectful a little bit to where things came from.
Right.
Whereas in America, it felt like this is pop music now. It just all of a sudden became this absolutely enormous monster that took over everything for a while. Because like you said, there was producers collaborating with hip-hop artists, with pop artists, with country artists, with everything. It just really, really took over. And yeah, like you said, everything they do is bigger. So the festivals became bigger.
They just popped it full of glitter, like what the Fraser. They just took it and like just put glitter on it, just like rolled it in glitter. I kind of feel like their president rolls himself in orange tan. That's kind of a bit like what they do, isn't it? They just roll themselves in things. So it sounds, during that PR stage, it sounds like you had some, or just frankly, wonderful experiences for someone in the industry. And we'll get on a little bit more about yourself and the industry, sort of like from a personal perspective too. But How did that PR journey shape your now management journey or that move into management? How did it shape that? What did you learn from that and think, right, I can take that with me for sure?
I think that I learned how to do it properly. I think management is something that you can't do unless you've done something else first. The amazing thing about PR was, like I've said, sitting around boardrooms in major labels, listening to what everyone is doing. So whether it's radio or, the rollouts or marketing or anything, that you meet the people and you learn what people are doing and you observe. And, also I think working with really big sort of clients early on meant that I was used to working in kind of high stress situations and with big clients and big teams. So that, my first client was Pendulum. That crossover from one thing to the other, when it came to being like, okay, well, what am I doing? That I actually really understood everything that needed to be done. I think the experience that I had at Listen Up was just perfect for what I then went into next.
So working with someone like Pendulum, who at the time were kind of top of their game, right? And I'm not saying they're not now, of course, but at the time there was this kind of sweet spot, obviously just before the pandemic in 2019. We'll talk about that perhaps, but what was that like, that first big, juicy client? We're like, right, I'm in the driving seat here. Where are we going to go?
I'd left Listen Up to join a management company. And then 3 months later, there was a pandemic. They ended up parting ways about a year later. So still very much within the pandemic. I think it was the beginning of 2021. So we had conversations about, do we join somebody? Do we do this? And in the end, it took so long that I was like, I guess it's just me then.
Right.
I was like, okay, sure. If that's kind of what you want me to do. And this kind of cut-off date that we had for shows being allowed to happen again felt like it was growing very, very close. And I'd only done one festival with them in 2019. And all of a sudden it was the middle of 2021 and I had to do them on my own.
Wow.
I had a really good relationship with Rob from the band. So he was really, really instrumental in those early days in, I guess, just being somebody to listen to when I had questions.
Yeah.
So, his understanding of me not doing the management thing before, I think was very helpful in that situation.
Yeah.
I knew everything that I needed to do. I'd just not done it before.
Yeah.
So we came out, cracking summer of festivals, into the studio to write new music. And then 6 months later, we sold out Ali Pali. We were main stage at Download. And then, we kind of got things rolling from there. And, we were learning as we kind of went on. But they'd been a client of mine at Listen Up for several years, as well as Knife Party. And I'd been a fan of them since they first started. So I think having quite a deep understanding as a fan of the project meant that in my head, when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I was kind of looking at it from a fan perspective of like, well, what do I want them to do?
Yeah.
So the previous management, I think, had created like a DJ sort of project that I felt like wasn't really the right thing to do. And it was like the band. People love the band. People want the band.
Yeah.
People want them to play Download because, you know, like they headlined one of the stages like back in 2011. Like this is the thing that people love and this is the thing that makes them really special. And yeah, you know, like
But
again,
I remember that 2011 show. I was there for that. And there was quite a furore around Download, which was kind of like, why?
I always found that quite strange because I know that they had Chase and Status there, which I thought was quite strange.
Yeah.
Pendulum to me
in
fit
there as well.
But I think Prodigy and Pendulum just fit though.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Well,
anything
there was
controversial.
a remix, right? I think, didn't Prodigy do a remix of a Pendulum track?
Other way around. So Pendulum
right.
did a remix of Voodoo People and then
That's
it kind
right.
of
The
became...
video is fantastic. Is that the one with
bigger.
the blindfolds? Everyone's running blindfolded.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If you haven't seen that video, go and have a look at that video. It's crazy, right?
Yeah,
Just
it's
running into
such
pillars
a good video.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. So there was a furore around it, but mainly because it was kind of different, I suppose. And actually to you and I, by the way, I'm certainly in Pendulum camp in that regard because I think, actually, if you look at some of the biggest producers in the world, they have metal backgrounds. We look at Skrillex, you look at people like that. The metal world and the dance world do have a lot of connectivity anyway, and I think audiences want the energy, right? But how amazing was that journey? So being an artist manager, right, I think it's fair to say it's damn tough.
Yes.
It's damn tough because you've got to wear a lot of hats, you've got to be tough, and you've got to have a good knowledge of quite a broad spectrum of things, which sounds like with the PR stuff, you've had that good base coat, as we would call it. But let's talk a little bit about, let's be honest, it can also be kind of thankless as a task. It can feel quite lonely too, I think. But when you're working with artists, how do you kind of keep yourself in check a little bit as well? How do you look after yourself?
I've touched briefly on, my exit from that camp and feeling a little bit like I was trapped because I was there for 5 years.
Right.
And, not trapped in a super negative way, but it started to feel like, is this the only thing that you're going to do? Because, other artists might not necessarily be interested because they think that your whole world is this project. And for a really long time, it was, it was a band that had come back from a 10-year hiatus. There hadn't been music for a while. So, in terms of bridging that gap and building them back to where they kind of should be was a full-time job.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a little bit like, am I enjoying this? And it was like not as much as what I had been previously. And actually it would be good to work with some other people.
Yeah.
So I stopped working with them in January and now, have a really colourful roster of a lot of other people. And I think the freedom to work across projects is something that's made me a lot more comfortable and a lot happier because I get to do lots of different things with lots of different people.
Yeah.
And actually, whether it's going to a different label every week for a different meeting about a different artist, it feels a lot more freeing than kind of having the same core people because towards the end I was quite lonely, I think.
Yeah. I think artist managers, by their very nature, are quite entrepreneurial. And I think, therefore, like variety. They like to explore new things. They like to do new things. And I think artist managers then, quite naturally, I think, will get bored. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it's a good thing. In fact, I've said many times before, boredom is a privilege because it gives you space to think about new things. And so I kind of get that, totally get it, because if you are, and it's interesting that point you made, and I think anyone listening would really love to, I thought it was a really interesting point, and maybe you glazed over really quickly, but if you're an artist manager and you're working with a really big artist, that might actually put other people off.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that straight away. You'd think, well, if they're working with that big artist, then I get the benefit of that. But actually, that's not your experience. Your experience is, if they're working with that artist, they won't take me as seriously, won't give me enough time or energy, which I think is a really fascinating kind of flip on that, really, because probably not been talked about from that perspective too much.
Well, I never realised until I kind of left, because obviously you always leave with the mindset of like, okay, I've got no clients now. What's my next step? And, within 2 to 3 months, I had a full roster again.
Yeah, brilliant.
And I know a lot of people and, we put ourselves out there to say that, we were looking for new talent, and we always are.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was a combination of the project being really big or how I kind of presented myself as just a million miles an hour into that project, nothing else mattered.
Yeah.
I didn't care about anything else, which obviously wasn't true. But like you said, I think it felt like the shutters were down a little bit to start off with, whereas people were like, oh, I didn't even realise you were looking for new projects.
Management is all consuming.
Yeah.
It just is. And I think it's really hard for anyone to put boundaries there too with the artist. I remember a good friend of mine was managing quite a high level artist, and I remember the story that really stuck with me. He had to go to his grandma's funeral. And I remember he said to me, he said the day he knew he wanted to stop management, when he got a call in the early hours in the morning from the artist asking for something really quite trivial. And he said to the artist, look, I'm really sorry, I'm just getting over my nan. You know, the funeral was only a couple of days ago. I'll come back to you on the following day. And the artist said to him, oh, come on, she's dead now, get over it.
I mean, I've experienced things like that, like, please don't message me at a certain time, and then they message you at the certain time. But, you know, I would say that it's most artists at that level.
Yeah.
It's not something that, it just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a little bit of compassion in that particular example. I don't think I've encountered that one.
It was pretty brutal. That
is pretty brutal.
But I think it kind of spoke to the sort of the personality of that particular artist. And if I told you it was, you probably wouldn't be desperately surprised. But it was one of those moments where I really felt for him. He did work for me as well for a while, and I was like, yeah, that would test me to the very end. So talking about being a manager, so if someone listening says, I'm actually quite interested in being a manager, what would be your initial response?
Do something else first.
Right.
PR obviously was the thing that I chose, but work for a label, work for a publisher, just surround yourself with artists. I know we touched on it a little bit about like the experience and the knowledge that you gain from doing something else first, but I also think that when you're surrounded by artists, and you have been for like a decade, you understand a bit more about people and interaction, because management is half of like what you do and the other half is how you do it. And every single artist is different, but they require a certain like kind of personality from you. They're not always like entrepreneurial businessmen that just want to have a business meeting. Sometimes they want to talk to you about how they're feeling. Sometimes they, have got things going on in their life that they don't want to talk about. And navigating that is a skill in itself. Yeah. And I do think that, that comes from maybe being a bit more experienced just in the industry as a whole.
100%. We tend to just internally at Blind Talent, when we're looking at artists, we tend to look at what we call like the 5 pillars, which is the A&R side, the music side, the branding, the coaching, which often feels more like counseling and kind of cajoling them to do things. Then you've got your industry connections, which is vital. And then, of course, you've got the monetization part, which is, well, how do you make this make commercial sense? And having to wear all of those hats is you're exactly right. You need to go and experience stuff. You can't just be a manager. And I did sound content quite a while ago now. It's got a bit of a mixed reaction, actually, was your friends shouldn't be your manager. Unless they've got, because we see that example, and you may have seen it. I've seen it loads. And my friends managing me. Oh, cool. What experience do they have? 0. They just really like me. It's like, okay, that's it's lovely. It's a beautiful thing. But the reality is that's probably going to be a hard slog. They've got a lot of learning to do. And if they've never experienced music industry, you're both starting at a similar kind of level.
Yeah, so they just almost become an extension of some of the band if the band also don't really know anybody.
It also comes a bit like admin, which is not what any manager really goes into. We go into it because we want the experiences. We want to see the main stage. We want to see the effect that we have.
Yeah.
And certainly that's my view. I mean, I don't think all managers necessarily go in with that mindset, but I'd like to think that most managers that are coming at it from the right angle are coming in with the idea that I want to see you go from, as you said, little tiny show to SW4 headline for Marshmello. That's the kind of journey you want to see as a manager.
And I think like that, having at least some kind of understanding of how you get there is an important skill to have, even if you don't know every person, or, there's some in-between steps that you're not quite sure how to get to. Having a overall plan or idea of the stages of which that progression will come in is something that's really important as a manager. Because, like you said, if it was just your mate that didn't have any experience, like they're not going to know how to get there either. Yeah, I mean, we might have called that previously the blind leading the blind. Yeah.
So let's get on. That's a lovely segue because obviously you are working at Unholy is your thing, right? And you've got some incredible artists. I was checking out your roster. I was like, oh, sick. Okay, yeah, love this. So, you know, everyone from Trash Boat, Mode Step, St. Agnes, by the way. Yes.
Love that.
Love, yeah. Very, very into that. When we talk about artist branding, clearly, when I look at the artists that you're working with, I don't know how much influence you have in that, because I know sometimes it's a bit of a dual thing, but give me your thoughts on artist branding more generally. Like, you know, how do you navigate helping artists in that area? Because it can be tricky.
The most important thing, and it's probably been said many times, is like authenticity. Like, it has to be authentically you, because the first big step of doing that is just the easiest step. If it's like, you don't have to make anything up.
Yeah.
It just is you. And how do you want to present you?
Yeah.
And I've worked with artists who are great on social media, who are terrible on social media,
Yeah.
who just refuse point blank to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, socials, obviously, we've all got a love-hate relationship with them, but are a necessity in being the thing that conveys your message across. St. Agnes, for example, I think like their thing is like their live show. So we've kind of taken a bunch of stuff and they're packaging that into content for socials, because, you know, we want to show that off for people. So it just has to be who you are.
It is one of those words, probably you and I hear it every single week, and it almost like loses its meaning over time.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know what that is, whether it's just overuse, but authenticity or brand work, it is really, I think I love that word extraction, because I feel like that's what managers do. We're kind of trying to ask those right questions. Okay, well, how do you want to be presented? What is your tone? And what we really want, I think, is for it to be more instinctive. And I think when we look at those brands that are very intentional in the rock space, like Youngblood, I think is probably one of the best examples of intentionality aligned with commerciality, but also there is an authenticity about it too. And I remember seeing him years and years and years ago at The Great Escape and thinking, okay, yeah, this is cool, but very small. And then years later, of course, you're kind of going, fuck, okay.
He was in one of the rehearsal spaces that we were in, and I was like, who is this? This man is insane.
Yeah.
But like absolutely hyper, off the walls, like crazy, eccentric rock star.
Yeah.
And then you see him on stage and you're like, that makes sense now. That's where you're supposed to be. If you could be there the whole time, that's your platform. Like, and it's just him.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about him. I mean, I use lots of different examples because, you know, as managers, as marketing agencies, whatever, we're trying to help artists understand. So we use a lot of analogies and we use lots of different things. You know, stories, which we mentioned a moment ago, is clearly very important, right? We're in the year 2025 because of a great book of stories. If people ever doubt the power of a story, then, you know, just remember what year we're in and why. But I think with brand work, I always look at brand work more as scalability. You know, there's a reason why McDonald's looks the same in any country you go to. It enables you to scale once you understand that brand. I think with artists, that partly is the problem, is that they've got to find their story, because every brand has a founder's story. Youngblood has a founder's story. And then actually the branding itself is very clear, very consistent, very much built around community. And community is another one. Authenticity and community is another word we hear all of the time too. So when I look at someone like him, I just think that's a great blueprint to think about. You know, also he builds a lot of familiarity in his brand without you even realizing it, which I think is really, really clever. Even those first songs, like they sounded like Wheatus, Teenage Dirtbag. Well, of course they did, because we want to bring familiarity instead of production. Now, I don't know how intentional that was. The cynical marketer in me is like, that's 100% intentional. Don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I thought it was quite intentional. Familiarity is also part of this, I think.
Familiarity in music's always been a thing, hasn't it? It's like, how can we make this thing sound catchy and for people to get it stuck in their head?
Yeah. Hey, Jason Derulo, why don't you sound like Billy Ocean? Cool. Okay, let's do that.
Just rinse and repeat a little bit. Oh, that's just all pop music is anyway, in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. No, we like rinse and repeat.
Yeah. It's comforting to hear the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But that's why it works, isn't it? It's like, how can we make this song like a massive smash hit pop song? It's like, well, we can change this part of the structure, but the rest of it ends up staying the same.
Totally.
And you're like, yes, I like that.
There's a reason why there's format. There is verse, chorus,
it makes me feel safe. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I talk about that quite a bit. I'm a big fan of the human side of marketing.
Yeah.
Right? And our brains are hundreds of thousands of years old. And I don't know if you've ever read Sapiens, but, you know, we are. If you read Sapiens, by the way, you will realize that we are also awful. Like humans are actually awful.
Yeah, I don't think I need a book to
exactly. But there's one really great bit when it talks about community, and because we are so used to, like, if we were on our own in the middle of a jungle 100, 200,000 years ago and a tiger turns up, we're going to get our ass bitten, right? But if there's 100 of us, we're not going to. So we're sort of pre-built to community. We know that community equals safety. And I think if artists could get their head around that, and I think Youngblood, again, this podcast is not sponsored by Youngblood, just to be clear, but it just breeding that community of safety. And there's lots and lots of artists over the years that have done that. Black Veil Brides, I think, done it really, really successfully. I think there's lots of others, Swifties, etc. It's a very safe community, almost self-polices. But we're genetically driven to be that way. We as people, as Homo sapiens, that's what we
want to
need.
form cultures. We want to form like communities of people that like the same things.
Yeah.
And I think where the sort of industry is heading is there's a bit of a question mark over it a little bit, because I remember, I was a little emo kid at school, and then even like the goth kids were like a separate group, and we all listened to separate sort of bands and things. And even though there was like crossover, it was like, no, you can't listen to that band because that's that thing.
Yeah.
But actually the community that you were in felt incredibly safe, because it was just a whole bunch of people that dressed like you, that listened to the same music as you, that had the same colour hair as you.
Yeah.
And, I don't know where we're heading with regards to that, because, thanks to social media making everything more global, everything feels like it's a little bit fractured in terms of, on one hand, it's good because somebody can like Taylor Swift and Metallica and Sleep Token. On the other hand, it's like, are they forming friendship groups around cultures, or it feels like it's not really, really sort of solidified still in terms of like set groups of people, which again is great, because I love that, things that go viral on TikTok is anyone's guess. It's anything goes.
Yeah.
You could go and record a song as absolutely nobody and blow up, and I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Like, the gatekeeping part of the industry is very slowly kind of falling apart.
Well, the gatekeeping part of it is really interesting. Obviously, I spent many years being one of those gatekeepers at, Kerrang and Kiss and blah, blah, blah. And it was quite simple back then in many ways for people. They were like, right, okay, we need to get our track on this radio station, this TV station, and in this magazine. And slowly that sort of disintegrated. And I suppose nowadays you might say the Spotify team or the TikTok team are the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about both of those platforms is how powerful the algorithm can be. And actually, you can bypass those teams with community. And I find that quite interesting when you talk to artists who still kind of think there's some sort of like, I don't know, there's some sort of like hidden code that, if you're a record label, you're going to get on New Music Friday, and you'll never go viral on TikTok unless you're Universal Records or something. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
You and I know that that's not true. But I totally appreciate where an artist is coming from, because the competitive landscape is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like 200,000 songs a day, and half of them now aren't even real people. It's getting to this kind of mammoth kind of challenge that an artist has. But let's kind of talk a little bit about mistakes that artists make, because we all have a sort of different view on this, I suppose. But in your experience, what's the most common mistake that you see artists making, particularly with regards to their brand, but it could be anything?
Slow, continuous growth is a lot more powerful than just trying to go viral on TikTok.
Yeah.
So the mistakes that a lot of them make is, like, oh, my TikTok didn't do this track didn't do this. And, it's like, well, did your track do the better than the last one? Like, are we growing? Are we evolving? Do you have more fans on your mailing list? Are we playing bigger shows? We're not at Wembley yet.
Yeah.
But, like, we've just played the Black Heart. Like, there's a lot of things that need to come in between that before you go, oh, but my song didn't blow up and I'm not playing Wembley.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you do manage to do something that like is a huge hit, it doesn't guarantee what comes next.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people fall into that trap of having a hit record and then acting like they are the biggest artist in the world, only for the next one and the one after that to not do anything. It's vicious out there.
Yeah.
It's competitive from one track to the next, not even just from one artist to the next.
Yeah.
You're kind of almost in competition with everything that you've done before. So I think putting the blinkers on a little bit and not focusing so much on what you think is relevant and what you think is right is what will make you still have that artist career in 10 years from now.
One of the really significant points I think you make there is around this long game. And there's artists now, you know, Miles Smith, whatever, they're taking 10 years, Lola Young, they're taking 7 years to come to some kind of viral moment, as we kind of indicated now. Oh, it's a viral hit now. It's like 7 to 10 years in the
they've
making.
done the work.
And I think artists do have a tendency of looking at this golden egg and saying, hey, look, if I just go viral.
Yeah, like I want it now. And if I don't get it now, that means it's failed.
Yeah, and it's my manager's fault.
Yes.
I haven't gone viral. What's going on here? Okay, if in doubt, blame the manager. Someone said to me once, the algorithm's against me. And I said, what are you talking about? The algorithm doesn't have emotion. It's not there going, hey, that Bob.
I'm just going to pick on you.
Yeah,
because I
just
don't like you.
It's a playground bully. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll make you feel like you're special and I'll just whip the rug from underneath your feet. And I was trying to explain, the algorithm does not have any emotion whatsoever. It's a computer-generated logarithm that's just trying to understand your community, which is not a desperately sexy thing to say to an artist because they kind of look at you with this trying to solve like this difficult maths equation.
Yeah, it's a bit like saying it's just maths, and the more people that listen to it, the more people it's shown to.
Yeah, and have you pushed your mailing list, and have you pushed your WhatsApp broadcast channel, and have you got a Discord group? No. Okay, well, let's take a few steps back.
Yeah, you know, like you said, there was like, what was it, 200,000 tracks a day?
Yeah.
You can't expect to go, okay, my track's out today and just let it sit there because it will just sit there. You know, like you have to...
How many times have you heard that, by the way? Oh, my song's so good. Oh, my song's better than any song out there. I'm just going to release music and it's going to be huge. Really? Okay. If you don't promote your music or you don't PR your music or market it in any way, shape or form, good luck.
And, you know, sometimes maybe you do have a single that doesn't do as well as you want, but you pick yourself back up and you carry on.
Well, success is very relative too, isn't it? And I think when you start to increase the success of an artist, naturally their expectation goes up. Like any kind of business owner, really. Oh, we just had a really great month. Next month's going to be even bigger. I guess that's kind of a similar thing. An artist work in a very creative, emotional space in their brains. And
they do. So I understand that, you know, like a failure to them that it is bigger than a failure to me. In some instances, something's not been a failure to me. And I've got stats sort of to prove it. And, you know, it's still been like, but it didn't do the things that I wanted to do. Which is why, you know, like we spend a lot of time explaining this sort of stuff to artists because I want everyone that I work with to be really happy with what they're doing. One of the things that was really interesting about working with Pendulum was that the music that was released before and the music that was released sort of when they came back was measured by completely different metrics. So you go, Immersion sold 1 million CDs. What is the kind of 2025 version of that? Because I don't think there's many records that will sell 1 million physical copies in one country alone. Like that would be the biggest album of the decade probably if it did that again.
Yeah.
So trying to explain to an artist, these are what the numbers are, and you've not seen them before, even though they've had like a 20, 30 year career, to be like, it looks different now.
Yeah.
And like, how do you measure success? And it was actually like quite a confusing conversation to have because, you know, it's doing really well. And have an artist be like, is it?
They've had huge success 15 years ago. And like you say, the measurement for success then was quite physical and actually very tangible, actually, in many ways, whereas now it's a little less tangible. I suppose ticket sales are still a strong indicator.
Yeah.
Sol Parker, who was on one of our earlier episodes, still believes that is, you know, it's...
Well, it's the only real quantifiable thing we have, isn't it? Because, you know, like now to go gold or platinum or whatever it is, it's a really arbitrary number of like streams divided by, times by... And you go, here you go, you get a disc. Thank you, but I don't know what this means anymore.
They just keep merging data and going, okay, we're just trying to find another way to benchmark this. And most people now just look at a variety of different metrics in isolation. Oh, that's our Instagram, that's our Spotify, that's our TikTok. TikTok sounds, TikTok for artists is coming. Well, it's actually now clearly live, but where that's going is super interesting in terms of consumption and measuring consumption. I'm very, very fascinated to see when that develops in the next 6 to 12 months because clearly... they're trying to, in fact,
Yeah,
it's called
I'd like to
TikTok
see
for
how that
artists,
goes.
like the intention couldn't be much clearer, in my opinion. But no, I guess we'll see. I do want to touch on very quickly TesseracT.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm very much a fan over here. But I want to just talk a little bit about the live show, which is clearly very, very, very important part of them and what they're about. So do you think artists actually work hard enough at their live show?
Coming from electronic music, yes.
Right.
The technology that I've seen some people use, like Eric Prydz for one, with his like hollow show and the sphere and everything. Technology enables you to do whatever you want now. And I think electronic music has absolutely nailed it. Like the anima stuff, if you've seen that with like people banging on the thing,
Incredible.
It's absolutely beautiful and incredible. And I always laugh because I feel like it comes from a place where DJs aren't very interesting to look at.
Of course, yeah. That's almost certainly where it comes from.
Without trying to be like too offensive, because, like a lot of DJs are a lot very good friends of mine, and I'm not saying they're boring, but, like it becomes this more theatrical spectacle. And you kind of see it in like rock music and kind of bands, but mostly still headliners, I think, more than everybody. Whereas, you go to Creamfields or whatever, they've got screens, everybody's got visuals, everyone's doing something, everyone's got fire or whatever it is. Whereas, you go to Download, maybe the headliner has some visuals.
Yeah.
I think bands could do a lot more. Like Pendulum was a fantastic example again, because they were both. So, we created this massive sort of production that was visuals when there was no vocals in the track. So Rob would take a step back and they would have something to look at, but then encompassing live cameras and, so you could see his face when he was singing because he's still a rock star. He still wants to be sort of front and center in everything that you're doing. And kind of the same with TesseracT. TesseracT are very theatrical in kind of what they do. And I don't think like they'd never had sort of a visual element to their show before. So we're still just figuring out what we're doing with that. But we've bought like this huge rock structure and we've got a screen behind it. And again, it encompasses visuals where there's like heavy breakdowns and, stroby bits where it gets sort of really high energy.
Yeah.
But then again, the cameras, because, you don't want to lose the people, like the human element of it, because a band is a bunch of humans that you want people to pay attention to. Because again, like that's how you get sort of, I suppose the difference between a DJ is that the DJ kind of is more music orientated, might not be playing their own music, whereas a band, it's about the people and who they are. So just stick a bunch of cameras on their face and, it brings it all together.
With bands like that, there is because they're not a brand new band, right? They've been around a bit, right? And they are clearly known for their technicality, actually, in terms of what they play. And they don't want to compromise on that, of course. And I think sometimes performance can be a little bit of a compromise. How good do you want to play versus how much do you want to run around the stage and do a dance routine? Okay, so maybe not quite in TesseracT's context, but but also it's a cost implication. But technology now, I guess that question is slightly leading, but I guess it's two worlds we live in. You've got your independent artists at the very bottom where they're supporting another artist, and the show, they've got to leave an impression. Right? When someone goes to the show, one of the biggest challenges I think an artist has is, how do you make an impact as a support act? How do they remember you? Because they're often not there for you. They're often there for the headline act, and you've been given an opportunity. And so the show needs to reflect your brand. It needs to, and pretty quickly, because you've got 20 minutes to try and convert however many people are in that room, which might not be full, but there might be a portion of people. And I sometimes feel like artists don't, certainly at the early stages, don't think enough about the performance and how to make that special. They're much more focused on, can I play it correctly? I want to make sure that technically I'm sound. I sound good. I look good. I'm not a fuss. I don't mess around with the sound guy too much. Don't want to be known as one of those artists that just gets in the way. But actually, I think sometimes artists don't take enough chances at that stage either. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. I mean, first of all, I think whoever's doing the booking needs to make sure that they are on a relevant tour. Because if you're not, there's no point in trying anything else. I've seen a lot of bands go out with really, really big acts, just not even really in the same genre, and it doesn't work. You need sort of to be booked on a tour that's complementary to your music. Otherwise, people are just going to stand there and look at you, no matter how good you are.
Sometimes I know, I'm from having conversations with people, that sometimes that's very deliberate because they don't want to steal any thunder from the headline act. So they put slightly mediocre, not quite the right fit artist underneath, so that everyone watching goes, oh, well, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, I'll go to the bar.
But it's not
instead.
TesseracT, you know, and I think sometimes there's a bit of that in there as well, which I'm sure you've seen over the years. I've definitely seen that. Because obviously you and I want the same thing. We want our artists to go on with really relevant crowds that are going to see them and go, like that, totally into that, going to come see you again. But yeah, there is obviously that slightly cynical side of the live area. Let's talk a little bit about, and this is always one of those slightly, like, people think it's quite provocative, but it's not. I think it's really important. Talking about your role as a woman in the industry. Now, I think this is really important that we talk about these things, because you experience it different to us. Like, I'm a white, middle-aged dude, right? I couldn't be more in the sort of like center of this industry if I tried. But tell me a bit about what it's like being a woman in a leadership role. What have you encountered along the way? I mean, we've heard some serious stories, even in this series of podcasts, from Sarah being like, just assumed that she was the roadie, like, what? Tell me a bit about your experience.
I think if I had to start with a positive, I would say that the world of labels and publishing has improved dramatically.
Yeah.
But then the live environment, I think, has a lot of work that it needs to do, because, and I use this example when I was talking to somebody else, and it was the microaggressions that you kind of get.
Right.
You walk onto a main stage, and even though you've got the correct pass and a radio, it's, oh, sorry, we don't allow girlfriends or friends on stage.
Right, wow.
And it sounds quite shocking. And, a lot of people are like, oh, just, pay no mind, tell them who you are and just carry on. But the real issue with that is that it isn't once. It happens pretty much every other festival that I'm at, whether it's not being let into front of house or not being let on stage or somebody going, where's your boss? It's less the aggressive nature behind it. It's more just the real micro sort of just lack of understanding that a woman can do it.
Right.
I went to a festival a couple of weeks ago in Spain. Half the local crew were women. Women can lift things. Women can do things on stage.
Yeah.
If something's heavy, maybe get somebody to help you lift it.
Yeah.
Nobody needs like a big sort of white man trying to prove something by picking up something that's too heavy for them.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just ask.
That's a bit awkward, isn't it? Sorry, love, I'll pick that up for you. Oh, fuck, I'll get a trolley.
It's like, why don't we just pick it up together? Like, you know, so...
Awful.
It's frustrating.
What do you do, though, in those situations? Do you have a little arsenal of things you can say to help them realise it's not right what you're saying?
It used to really upset me. And when I watched somebody do it to Georgie from my office as well, I was like, I'm not having this, because I've spent 10 years in this industry trying to make things better, and you're telling me it's going to be exactly the same for her.
Right.
So now I just tell them to get fucked. It's like, well, it's a good job I'm not anyone's girlfriend then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it is ridiculous when you think that, whether it's a TesseracT or a Pendulum, I'm managing quite often the headliner of an entire festival where there's 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, sorry, love, why are you here? It blows your mind, but it happens over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably one of those things. Every little battle is probably going to help towards that.
But, I think I just need to continue to be there. And Georgie needs to continue to be there.
Yeah.
And pretty soon it will just be commonplace and nobody will question it, because it's not malicious a lot of the time. It's just like a hangover from previous generations.
Yeah, which I think will change. And I do think there are some absolute female powerhouses in the industry.
Oh, they are.
Some you've mentioned there. Lara Baker's another one for me. I just think some of the work she's done with the Women in Music Awards and some of the just fantastic initiatives. And I love that. I think, for me, most of my team are female, and I go to these things, go and meet more people, go and get out there, because there is change, and it has already changed. And I think we're seeing a new generation of future MDs coming through, and
Yeah.
it's brilliant that, because I always feel like with women more broadly, there's always been a slight underlying confidence issue, partly because of the industry itself, I think. But I'm starting to see that diminish a bit more. They're just coming out a bit more kind of like, no, this is what I want to do, and this is who I am.
And I think it's because there's other inspiring women.
100%.
It's always going to be frightening for the first one to be like, well, I can do this.
Yeah.
If you can. But then, you know, like you get people like me who I think like is the kind of the midpoint of my career, looking at older women who have smashed it, and I'm like, I can do that. Because actually,
you need male allies as
I've
well.
watched you do that. Yeah, this is one of the things that I think we could do with some sort of more support on, is that there's lots of really fantastic groups for women, like Women in Music and, you know, the awards, and, you know, there's a lot of meetups and social events, but we need men, I think, because if you use the sort of example I gave about the live stage, most men are not malicious.
Yeah.
They just don't have a clue what we experience every day. Because that story, in a way, is almost not really worth me saying, that somebody said they thought I was someone else's girlfriend. But, you know, when you explain it to a man and say that it's happened 100 times, they all of a sudden go, oh, that's actually quite bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, you can apply this sort of concept to the wider world, and it sounds quite brutal, but there will always be men that hate women.
Yeah.
Like, especially successful women. But most men aren't like that.
Yeah.
So if you can get the whole female community and all of the men, those men that hate women will just disappear.
Yeah.
Because there'll be no place for them.
Yeah.
So I think integrating, and I think it's why you see it work so well in the workplace, is, you know, like, we've made space for women to become presidents of labels, and they work with men, and nobody complains because nobody really has that much of an issue about it.
Yeah.
So we've now allowed this growth, which has been fantastic. And I do think it pushes those real minority voices of negativity out. So men allies, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we just need more of those in the business.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the work that's being done is echoing through. And I think almost there is a ripple effect happening. And I'm seeing it in real time. And, you know, it's just great. It's really amazing to see. And the industry is moving on and will continue to grow and get better in all spaces. I mean, not just that, but also class and race. I think it's really sort of moving on in all spaces. So, okay, thank you for that, because I know that's sometimes quite a difficult thing to answer, but I thought it was a really, really great answer. Thank you. So we talked earlier about the 200,000 tracks a day on Spotify, and this kind of environment we find ourselves in now, where it's social media burnout, it's highly competitive, it's, you know, the lack of money. There's so many different areas that an artist just thinks, why am I doing this? This is fucking crazy. Why have I decided to pursue a career in music where I've got all of these challenges? And I guess my question to you is, how do you think an artist breaks through now? What do you think are the core elements to an artist breaking through?
I think it's more difficult now than it probably ever has been, due to the volume of things that get put out every day, as we've already discussed. But, you know, also trying to find pockets of where you fit in. I think I talked about this at a panel I did the other day, because there was an artist in the audience that was like, I just don't know what to do.
Right.
Like, I've got so much music. And I think the advice that I kind of gave to him was, you know, who are you and what are you and what do you want to do? Because if you want to make house music and you want to break into Ibiza, go meet people, build a solid foundation for you, for yourself. Because one of the things that, you know, you have to do to break out is not be the same as everyone else. And I feel like being a face that somebody recognizes is a really good step in getting your foot in the door.
Yeah.
That's how you separate yourself from being the other 199,999.
Yeah.
Is it's like, well, here's a whole bunch of things that I don't know, but I know you, so I'm going to listen to your record. Dance music, rock music, there are communities within the industry of people that know other people. So I think if you can try and break through on a like really human focused level, you know, social media is what it is, but it can create quite a hollow following.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to clubs and meet other DJs and, you know, give them your tracks the old-fashioned way. I still think that has something to it.
Yeah.
To just becoming part of the scene that you want to be in.
1,000,000%. I often talk about this like 10-90 rule when I talk to my artists, and hopefully this resonates with you, but I say you've got to influence the 10%, not the 90%. And when I talk about the 10%, I'm talking about those influencers, the people that are doing it, that are in the scene. And that doesn't just mean Radio 1. People often think, oh, well, you know, Radio 1 won't even reply to my email. It's like, no. That's just one of the 10%. That's just one person within the 10%. You're trying to find people in your industry that are the 10%, because 90% are followers. They're the ones what you're kind of doing the playlisting, and you're kind of hoping that they like your music. But they're not the ones. It's the 10% that will influence 90%. That's kind of my view on it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I think, is 1,000% valid. You've got to go and meet people, be familiar. People keep seeing you around, and they go, oh, yeah, that's that artist. Oh, my God, yeah. Okay, when they send me something, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take it seriously. Because you're building connection. You're building real connection. And that goes back to a very human thing.
It's the same for me. It's like, if an artist approaches me at a festival and has a chat with me and then emails me the next day, I am so much more likely to listen to that than somebody that's just randomly emailed me.
Yeah, it's hollow, isn't it?
It is hollow.
I think you reference it as hollow.
We use this platform for all of our artists called Open Stage, and
Rob's platform. Yeah.
It pulls people in from all different sources, and it kind of ranks them of like core fans, like medium fans, and then casual. And as brutal as that sounds like it is, obviously, like, you know, that's kind of a tool for us more than the artist.
Yeah.
I think what it's taught me is that you don't need 100,000 people. You just need like the right people.
Absolutely.
You know, like we used it to basically, like with Trash Boat, they did a show at 2000 Trees, and we'd got these weird viral posters that had this kind of cryptic message and a phone number. And, you know, like we got like 1,500 people sign up for it. And then we put on some shows and sold out the pre-sales for the shows using basically those numbers.
Yeah.
And you go, well, what you're doing is you're kind of fishing in a really small pond, but they're the right people.
Yeah.
So now we got what we wanted.
Yeah.
And we didn't bother about any of these other people that probably weren't that bothered.
Yeah.
And I think if you focus solely on growing those people, that's where like the sustainable part of like your career will come from.
Yeah.
You know, and they already had quite a core foundation of fans anyway. So we knew that we were going to shift a certain amount of tickets, but it was like, but how can we just hammer it? How can we make sure that this is perfect?
Yeah.
And it's the right people. It's not masses of people.
And I think that's a really, really fascinating point, because we go on to talk a bit about, I've got a question here about data, but I think we should just talk about it now, because I think platforms like OpenStage, and there are other platforms like that available, just to be clear and fair, but I think what they really do is they help you understand that audience from a marketing funnel perspective. So typically you're going to have people at the very top of the funnel that kind of have a passing interest in you as a band, but maybe they don't buy stuff. Maybe they just like a couple of posts. And as you get to the bottom of that funnel, you're going to be getting your hardcore that buy everything. They're the ones that are first through the door. They love you, love you, love you. But a lot of artists don't understand the different types of audience they have. They just kind of rather crudely put them into, I've got 10,000 followers on Instagram. And I've got a mailing list with 2,000 emails on. It's like, cool, but not all fans are created equal.
Yeah.
And probably shouldn't be treated equally either, I would argue, because if someone is investing money and time coming to your shows, they should be rewarded. They should be given more access. They should be given more exclusivity. And these types of platforms are really helping artists, managers, labels to funnel it out a little bit and go, actually, these people are really cool. We should give them exclusive access, or we should get them to come to the sound check, or we should give them something extra special for all the loyalty that they're showing. But how do you know how loyal someone is? You don't, unless you know they've purchased something.
I think you can build things in certain ways. For example, you know, like the OpenStage platform that we use, I think one of the biggest statistics that blew my mind on that was like using Pendulum as an example, because that's one where there is a lot of people on there, was something like 80% of all merch sales was the same 500 people.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's insane. They're the people that keep you in business.
So someone said to me about this 1,000 fan theory, you just need 1,000 fans. And I remember saying, no, it's more nuanced than that. You need to understand the quality of that 1,000 fans and the sort of value almost. This is a business and you're building value in your business, and these customers are part of the value in your business. So you need to understand the monetary value of them as well. And I think that's where some of these platforms come in. But these platforms are very expensive. So when you're an independent artist at the bottom of that run, you need to find more effective and cheaper ways of doing things like Excel spreadsheets and, dare I use the word, I think with AI come in as well, there'll be a lot more solutions there too. But so look, we're getting into sort of final throws now. So a couple of kind of hot take questions, but just really interested to get your view on these things. So if you could rebuild the music industry, let's say you could change one thing at least, what would you change first?
The monetization of streaming.
Right.
Because at some point we decided that we didn't need to pay for music at all. And then somebody came in and said, no, $9.99 a month. And that we decided that was okay. And that entire artists who devote their entire life to their work to be reduced to getting pennies or 0.0% of pennies per stream is just an unacceptable way to live.
Yeah, I think it was Jamie who said on the podcast at some point along the way, we went to the very bottom of the barrel was the way that he described it. And I think he also had a slight issue. But I've also had conversations with people in the industry that say streaming is the best thing that ever happened to the music industry. And actually we make many millions of pounds from it.
The tech is incredible. The algorithm, you can't argue with how clever it is. But I feel like the payment structure was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to, oh God, people are illegally downloading music and we have no control over it. Like our business model is going to be completely ruined. And then we settled on, we can make people pay a bit. Okay, let's do that. And then we'll work out the rest sort of like as we go. Because I don't know a single person who has ever had an issue with paying £10 for a CD. We just always used to live our life like that. I'd still pay £10 for an album. I don't now because I don't have to. But, if there was, I suppose like making streaming, I don't know, like a tiered system of usage, which is if you listen to it 15 hours a day, like I do, pay more. Yeah, I'd be happy to pay more.
That probably is something that don't say it too loudly because they might start doing it.
As long as the money comes back to the artists, then, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are happy to pay more. Yeah. But I know these conversations have happened in the background and they refuse to increase their subscription price.
But then, we as music fans would love to pay more. But if you go into the slightly more casual, I don't know how annoyed you get when Netflix sort of go, okay, it's going up to $15.99 now. Or if you want to add more people on, I'm just sort of being devil's advocate here a little bit. I think the general public probably would have more of an issue if they suddenly said, oh, okay, well, you've been used to paying $9.99, but now because you're listening to 10 hours a week, you got to pay £99.99.
Yeah.
Do you know what? My overarching point on this is that the value of music started to go down as soon as the internet was launched. And so it's not like this has just creeped up on us and people are going, oh my God, this is a new problem. This problem's been around for 25 years.
Yeah.
And the idea that we're kind of looking at it now in 2025 and going, oh, we're still not really monetizing this correctly. It's like, yeah, the industry's kind of dumb. We had plenty of chances right the way along the line to make some proactive decisions.
The industry just has, I think, been quite slow at adapting. It would be good if we could use like AI for good and look at the way that we pay royalties. Because at the minute, an artist can get publishing income several months or years down the line because of how many systems it has to kind of go through before it ends up in their pocket. I think there's so much tech that we could use to completely rebuild that.
I think that will happen. I must say, I was at an MPA thing. I think I might have said this. I hope I haven't said this on a podcast before. I might have done. But I was at an MPA thing and it blew my mind. I was talking to these different publishers and they're like, oh, yeah, we still do our returns on pen and paper. And this is like 2018. And I thought, what the actual fuck? Like, what? Are you kidding? Are you actually kidding me?
That's amazing, but also like ridiculous.
Totally ridiculous. And so now, I think, like you say, we used to there was a real lazy term around blockchain a few years ago, and all like blockchain is going to solve everything. And it's like, yeah, okay. But now we're in 2025 and we've got AI and we've got, I worked in AI in 2018 as well. Done 6 months in AI and it was fascinating even then. The biggest problem was processing power. It wasn't really to do with the capability of AI. It was just we didn't have the power in the computer technology to do it. Now, of course,
Yeah.
you know, if you hear the rumors about ChatGPT 5, it's going to be off the freaking scale. But I love AI because I've seen it, I feel it, I use it, but I fully appreciate it's got lots of different things that are possibly questionable at this point. But the environment was AI, saturated platforms, short attention spans, challenged music economy, which we've just talked about, so many other challenges, right? Of course there are. But like in all environments where there are challenges, there are going to be opportunities. So what do you think the next 10 years of the music industry is going to look like?
I think we'd be happy if, AI music was for ambient, background music. That, there's no issue sort of with that kind of thing. I don't see it replacing artists. Maybe there's tools that, producers can use where it helps speed things up or make things a bit easier. But I don't think it's going to be this entirely falsified, like, AI boy band with no real personality, because I still think at the heart of everything to do with music is people. Like when you look at an AI person, you can see that they've got no soul. That's why you can kind of figure out that it isn't quite real, because your brain still tells you that something's not right. So I can't see it coming in and sweeping the whole board clean and changing everything.
Yeah.
If it could sit in a more complementary way to music production, I think that would probably be something that sounds quite useful.
Yeah.
Social media, like, who knows? I'm sure there'll be something brand new that pops up. But people like feeling like they can relate to something. So I think that we might see more pockets of communities sort of popping up. Not quite in the same way that, they did when I was a teenager, but, finding community in things.
Yeah.
Because everything else around it will be quite fake. Monetization of things is a real tricky one at the minute, not just because of the music industry. Like touring costs have gone up massively because costs of life have gone up massively. So I think there might be more, Discord communities, people paying attention to the smaller networks of people that are loyal, things like Patreon and, like subscription for specific artists. I think will be another kind of platform for artists to earn money where they kind of treasure the smaller community rather than go wide.
I do believe what AI will give us is the ability to scale community. I really fundamentally believe that. And if you allow me one cheeky little pun there, I do think the pendulum will often swing one way. Is that a pun? I hope it is. It'll often swing one way and then kind of center. And I feel like the internet done that in the early noughties, and it kind of went crazy. Everyone was like, the boom, everyone's setting up shops, and then there was loads of crash. Oh no, it doesn't quite work. And I feel like we're going through that with AI now. We've had this sort of storming phase, and I think we're approaching that norming phase where, okay, we get what it can do and we get what it can't do, and we're starting to police it a little bit. I mean,
because I think people see some videos and they go, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like
you said it earlier, heart.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great way of describing it. Often you'll see that content and go, it's got no heart. It hasn't got a pulse. You somehow can feel that.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it?
That's what makes us human, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Humans will win. It's not quite the Terminator story, is it? But
hopefully humans will win. We're doing a really good job of trying not to, but
I keep
hopefully.
saying, if we've got the plug sockets, surely we're okay. As long as we can pull the plug out, we're okay.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Well, look, I think it's a very hopeful view of the future, which I totally am in line with, because I'm very much in that space as well. I really, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been a fantastic chat. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wealth of knowledge and experiences with us. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Lovely. Thank you for having me.
Make sure you subscribe and drop us a follow on Instagram to get involved with the conversation. For more information, go to blindingtalent.com or drop us an email at industry@blindingtalent.com. Thank you.